but it wasn't fully consciously intentional. Does that make sense?
I mean,
a little bit. That's kind of reaching further into his psyche than I think we can.
I was going to say, I would need...
Chuck Palahniuk told me how it works. So.
Oh, yeah.
I would need to talk to some people about, like, realistically, if that happens and what the real world...
I don't know.
Hollywood is real.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
It's definitely not.
And if it's written in a book, it's real.
And definitely Chuck Palahniuk is not. Definitely not real. I mean, he's real, but his stuff is, you know. So, like,
his stuff is out there.
I would definitely want to know more about, like, the real... Like, how that manifests in reality?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. I don't think there's a good theory on this case.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, that's always possible, but it's like, you know, it's hard to say what was going on with the guy. Totally. He didn't seem to be actually that far around the bend. I mean, he had anxiety, which is not really that unusual.
Most of us, most people suffer from anxiety at some point.
He had it more than he should have.
He exhibited some really weird behavior.
He
like
did.
the whole thing on the airplane.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about this,
incident.
but he got into a small altercation on an airplane that landed in Chicago, and they said that he smacked a stewardess on the back. And then he's doing all these things like declining commanding a unit and all this stuff because he doesn't want to smear the service and he's got to get that taken care of. Like, that's really, really, really oddly, obsessively focused on what seems like a minor thing.
I think he was using that. It seems obsessive in one, but it was avoid doing something. Because what they were talking about was promoting him to a command post, which would have been a lot more responsibility. And he might have taken a reading of his own psychic state and decided that he didn't really need that kind of pressure.
Well, he also might have said, you know what, I got 4 months to go.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I probably shouldn't take that promotion.
Yeah, so on the one hand, you can see it as irrational. On the one hand, it was a really totally rational response saying, hey, this might break me. I'm not going to take that command spot.
Right.
And I'm going to make up with whatever kind of weak excuse I can come up with, I will do it.
But we also all know... like that person who's just always a martyr in their lives, you know, where they're always like, oh God, I have it so hard, I have to do the right thing for this, for the good of the greater good. I couldn't possibly give my, but we all know people like that, and it's totally possible that he was maybe a little bit like that, and he, you know, it wasn't like a delusional thing, he was just kind of one of those weirdos.
Semi-drama queen.
Yeah, who was just like, no, my issues are just too big to shoulder. I couldn't possibly.
And we're not mocking that, by the way. It's just we're trying to rationalize this kind of stuff. So,
but it's impossible, and we're gonna. I mean, we could literally sit here for another. Oh my God, another 2 hours.
Let's do it. No,
that's not.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I think though that, and that's another reason I prefer the whole thing about the accident because, like, see, number one, if, assuming, for example, Nancy didn't want to kill him, he had a great way to deny her that $1 million, which is just, don't die. Don't kill yourself. That's all he had to do to keep the ex from getting $1 million. It's just
start
don't
going
die,
to the gym every day.
Eat right, you know, and all that stuff. And so,
barring her killing him, but yeah,
barring her killing him, exactly. And so
change your route to work every day.
Yeah. But the other thing reason I don't buy into it, of course, and again, suicides are not always rational, is that if so much of his anxiety came from this fear that he was going to get murdered for the money, and then, what's the response? I'm going to go kill myself, dude. I thought that's what you were afraid of.
Yeah.
You know,
but yeah, like you said, it's like not.
So it's like he gets the worst of both worlds with this. It's like he kills himself, which he was terrified of, and the ex gets $1 million, which he didn't want to have to see happen.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why I'm still liking accident over suicide. But of course, we'll never entirely probably know for 100% fact.
No, we won't.
But I'm certain in my own mind, at least, that he was not murdered and not tortured.
I think the accident theory is a really good one.
I think he talked about Fight Club.
Yeah, that could have been it too. Well, anyway, let's do a little housekeeping before we sign off for this week. Well, naturally, you're probably going to have an opinion on this. You're going to want to share it. Of course, that's okay. We have an email just for that, thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, we have a webpage, which is also, of course, called thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, where you can find our episodes. You can find also an episode list. It's got them all right there, easy to scroll through and find. And we've got
searchable.
Yeah, it's searchable. We've got over 200 stories we've done, And you can buy merch. Ooh, merch, yeah. Like mugs and T-shirts and, well, I don't know. All kinds of stuff. Slim Jims.
No.
We don't sell Slim Jims? Why not?
No, nor dental dams.
Yeah, lock picks. Anyway, so that's it. And also, of course, we are on iTunes and a lot of other streaming services also. You should subscribe if you want to, of course. You should. No, you should. Leave us a rating, a high rating, and also a review. We like that. And we're also on social media. We're on Facebook, of course, where we have a group and a page. You can like the page and join the group. And there's a lot of fun discussion going on out there. And we're on Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways, and we are on Reddit, where, of course, we are Thinking Sideways. And what's going on the Reddit, Devin? Anything good?
No.
No? Okay. Yeah, what have I forgotten? Anything? All right, well, that's it for this week, so I don't have any snappy... No, I don't. All right, see you guys. Bye.
Oh, bye, guys.
Later, everybody. This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by the linked attacks of the mines that restrict your ground movement and the pinpoint missile attacks from the air. Instead, it's brought to you by us! We're having a meetup on October 14th, 2017. It's going to be at the Lucky Labrador Pub on Killingsworth here in Portland at 6:30 p.m. Go online, look up the directions, go to our site or our Facebook, and there'll be posts about it, and you can RSVP. But all are welcome, all ages, and we will see you then.
Thinking Sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined this week by
Steve
and
Joe.
Today we're going to talk about a mystery that Joe petitioned really hard to call The Day Superman Died, but I think we decided that was copyrighted.
Yeah, DC Comics did that in the 90s.
I don't know if they can actually copyright that, because I mean, actually that title was used to at least one other essay that was published and copyrighted also.
See, so it's copyrighted. So it's copyrighted.
And now, if DC could use it when somebody else had already used it, then we can use it too.
Well, we're going to just call this the death of George Reeves.
Oh, fine.
That's safer.
Yeah, much safer. This was also a listener suggestion. It was suggested by Clarissa Explains It All.
Thanks,
Is
Clarissa.
that a joke about the TV show?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's her name.
Oh.
Yeah. Just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. You probably hate that joke, Clarissa. So thank you for suggesting this mystery. On June 16th, 1959, George Reeves died of a gunshot wound to the head between 1:30 and 2 a.m., according to the LAPD.
And George Reeves is the first man who played Superman on television.
Or even in the movies,
distinction.
I think.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I think he was the first motion picture. There might have been one. No,
There was a motion picture before him, I thought.
Yeah, no. So he's the first one on television.
Well, no, I thought he made the Mole Man Superman movie before the TV show.
But that was basically the pilot of the TV show.
Yeah, so you're saying somebody else, but that was the Superman movie. Was there another Superman movie before that one?
I thought there was.
Christ, I don't know.
Because he's not. So the thing is like there's this thing that we're not actually talking about here, which is called the Curse of Superman. And I remember looking at that list, and there were people listed before him as having fallen prey to the curse.
Oh, okay.
So
there were other
I
movies
think
then.
that there were other movies before that, but
I didn't think the character was that much older than the actual TV show.
I thought it was like the 50s when Superman was
I
born.
thought Superman fought Nazis.
Anyways,
Go back that
the reason
far?
that
No,
it's
I don't
okay
know.
for us to not know this is because this is not an episode about Superman.
Thank goodness.
Just an
good
actor
point.
who played Superman.
Can we not? There's an actor who played Superman that we probably shouldn't talk about.
Which one was that? Henry Cavill?
No, it's Mr. Ben Affleck because
Oh.
he was in a movie and he didn't suffer the curse.
Well,
Well,
not
he does
He does have a
everybody.
face made of clay. So.
Not everybody who's played Superman has suffered the curse of Superman.
Well, then that's a crappy curse.
Yeah, he didn't actually play Superman, though. He played a guy who played Superman.
Called George Reeves.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
So maybe
removable.
that's how he escaped it. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
one step removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Devin. We've taken you way off track in the
Okay.
first 2 minutes.
It's fine. Officially, George Reeves committed suicide on that fateful night of June 16th, 1959, between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. from a gunshot into the head, to remind everyone. But a lot of people think that he was actually murdered. And
It's actually been heavily speculated upon for many, many years. Like,
almost 60.
yeah,
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah, almost half your age.
Yeah, in Hollywood is actually. Yeah. Thanks, honey.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by talking about Reeves and his history. And then we're going to talk about the events leading up to, and then we're going to talk about theories.
Sweet.
Okay?
That's good to me.
Yeah. So George Reeves was actually born George Kiefer Brewer in 1914. His parents separated just after birth, and he had very little contact with his father. Both his mother and his father did remarry, and his stepmother basically said, we're not going to be a part of this kid's life. Bye. But his mom married a guy named Frank Beslow, and Reeves took the last name Beslow. He was adopted by his stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
The marriage lasted about 15 years, but his mother and stepfather separated apparently while Reeves was visiting some family like somewhere else.
This is messed up.
It's super messed up. And instead of telling Reeves what had happened, that she had gotten another divorce and things weren't working out, blah, blah, she decided that it would be better to just tell Reeves that his stepfather had committed suicide.
Yeah, I know. That's just messed up.
It's super messed up, and actually he apparently believed that
For
his
many
stepfather was dead for like years.
I think this caused a bit of a rift between him and his mother later
I
on in
think
life.
it did,
Yeah.
but I also think that this is one of those things where if you during formative years believed that somebody who was really important to you committed suicide, I think a lot of times psychologists say that it helps shape your brain for maybe not being particularly happy all the time. I don't know, I'm not a psychologist. Caveat, I'm not a doctor. But I do think it's always important to mention that when telling a story.
That this
It's pretty
seriously messed up thing happened. Yeah.
Reeves' first big film was this little indie production you may or may not have heard of called Gone with the Wind.
I heard
He'd been
that
acting
one.
for years before that, though.
He started acting in like middle school or something like that,
Yeah.
and then he pretty much, so when his stepmom and his father, or when his mom and his dad got a divorce, and his mom moved them to LA to live with her sister, and so he lived most of his life
I was
in
checking
LA.
his IMDb page, and I think he had acting credits in like 35 or 39. That was his first one.
Yeah,
So,
he'd
I
been
mean,
acting for a long time,
His
but
bit parts.
yeah, it was total just like,
Extras and stuff
extras
like
and
that.
stuff like that. So
Yeah,
his
and-
first actual role was in Gone with the Wind.
And he also had a boxing career. I guess I heard he got his nose broken like 9 times. And
Yeah,
yeah, I think eventually he decided acting would be more fun.
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he played Scarlett O'Hara's love interest in Gone with the Wind. It was one of the first love interests, and I mean, that's a pretty big role.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
except he looked like a fool.
yeah, well, yes, but
He had crazy colored hair.
yeah, they dyed their hair red. He and another actor. What happened in those days was you would sign with a studio. I mean, you've seen old movies. You
Yeah,
know
MGM
that's how it
Grand.
works, right? So Reeves signed with Warner Brothers. At that time, he was Frank Beslow, and then the studio gave him his professional name, quote unquote professional name.
They changed your name to something they thought people liked better.
Yeah, so his name
Or could remember.
became George Reeves at that time. And I will say there were some really interesting naming situations that happened back then, and we're going to talk about some of those people, in fact.
Actually, reading this particular thing, we kind of feel like I'm trapped in a comic book. Some of the names that some of these people have in their story.
Yeah, we'll get
Oh,
there.
yeah.
We'll
we
get
wandered
there.
into a speakeasy.
Yeah. In June of 1951, Reeves was offered the role of Superman for a television show called The Adventures of Superman. And Joe, you're correct that he did portray Superman in Mole Man and Superman, or whatever that one's called.
Yeah, I think it was Superman and the Mole Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was literally, the studio produced it as a pilot to the TV series. So he was cast for The Adventures of Superman, and they said, okay, we're going to do this pilot, and then it'll become this TV show.
I gotta check to see if Superman and the Mole Man is available on that.
It sounds like he really took his role as a role model, you're welcome, seriously. He was really, I mean, he really was the face of Superman. I mean, there's this story that you hear where this kid, and this was not how he died, but a kid once pulled a gun on him because he thought he was actually Superman. He thought he was...
Actually, that kid was me.
Bulletproof. Yeah, I bet.
Well, kids were also walking and pushing push pins into him, or punching him in the gut.
Yeah, because they all thought that he was actually Superman. They didn't understand.
They were naive.
The disconnect. Which, I mean, I think, kids to this day still have that problem.
Well, but you got to remember also, TV is brand new. Such a new concept. I mean, when you grow up with television, it's a concept, you get it. But when it's this brand new thing, like, it really is Superman. Wow!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
why not?
Yeah. He actually, to the point where he was a smoker, because, like, everyone was a smoker back then. But as soon as he became the face of Superman, he never smoked when there were kids around or like people were taking pictures of him, and eventually he stopped smoking. He tried really hard to keep his private life really private, although it didn't work out in his later years. And I will say, just because he was Superman does not mean that he was actually making millions of dollars.
Actually, a lot of that stuff didn't pay so good.
He was basically broke, as it turns out. And I can tell you why. I mean, okay, not...
Yeah.
Oh my God, like pittance, right? But for a man of his fame, he didn't have very much money at all. The reason was that they weren't paying a lot for the role itself, and they had this thing called a 4-week clause or something like that in his contract, where basically at any point the studio could demand they start production on a new season of Adventures of Superman 4 weeks before.
With 4 weeks notice.
So he couldn't go off and work on another project.
Yeah, on any other projects. Yeah, he couldn't.
Long term, anyway.
Well, at that point, everything's kind of a long-term project.
Well, yeah,
anything that's going to pay you money,
It's a 12-week shooting schedule with a 2-month buffer, so that's 4, 8, 12... So that's 5 months out of the year. So he could take little 2 and 3 and 4 month assignments.
He could not guarantee.
He couldn't guarantee. Well, that was the thing. He couldn't guarantee after that 3 or 4 month time frame that he would be able to hang around. So that's why it was hard for him.
Not even 3 or 4 months. They could a month after they wrapped production have said, okay, we're doing another one, and he would have 4 weeks notice. And
I read that everywhere, and everybody makes it out. But listen, the studio wasn't gonna just whip out a season's worth of scripts in no time flat like that. I think that I really feel like that was made out to be more than it was.
Have you seen the original Superman TV show?
Oh yeah, no, it is totally whipped out.
I could write one of those scripts in about 10 minutes.
I know you could, Joe, but my point is they had enough stuff going on that I don't think that they were just going to immediately call the cast back, because it wasn't like they could put them out on television until later on anyway. So I just feel like that is overplayed is all I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, but it does seem like it was a really kind of hard situation for him to be in.
I think a lot of the whole studio system, I think, really trapped a lot of actors, and a lot of them were jerked around and not really paid all that well. Treated all that well, really.
Yeah.
He's not the only one.
True.
But he apparently was also getting paid for reruns.
Yeah, but not...
I mean, he was getting money from again, I'm not saying he was making huge amounts of money, but, that was, the longer he did it, the more sustaining cash that turned into.
For a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as far as his personal life goes, Reeves was married for 10 years early in his life, before he kind of made it into
Before he met Superman?
Yeah, pretty much before he met Superman. He was married for 10 years. And then he had an 8-year relationship with a showgirl, and then ended that. And at the time of his death, he was probably engaged to a woman named Lenore Lemon.
I know, I love the name.
It's one of those names,
Lenore
right?
Lemon.
Lenore Lemon.
That's why I said it's like it's being in a comic book.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they actually were engaged, or she just made that up after the fact.
I don't think it was after the fact. I think the sense was she had been going around telling people that they were going to Spain to elope on June 19th of 59. 3 days after he died. They were set to elope. I have not seen anywhere that he was also saying,
corroborating this.
Yeah, we're going to elope, blah blah blah. But the sense is that he at least tolerated her telling people that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's possible. We'll get into that a little bit. Now we're solidly into the events leading up to phase. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay. All right, so as mentioned, there's some really colorfully named characters here, and those are...
Wait, these are all the people that were present on the night of his death?
I'm just going to tell you, kind of like who we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
Just want to get the names and their relation out.
Got it. I just wasn't sure where you're going with that.
We're doing like cast characters, then we're going to do events leading up to.
Okay.
All right, come on. Spit it out then.
All right. So Lenore Lemon, the fiance, or maybe not, we're just going to call her the fiance, was there. William Bliss, who was
Billy Bliss.
Yeah, he was a heating engineer who lived like down the street from... So, I mean, that's a great example of how maybe not rich Reeves was, right? He was living close to like a heating engineer, not necessarily like...
Well, he lived in a fairly modest little house,
He
actually.
did, yeah. But so Billy Bliss was also there, and nobody's quite sure why Billy Bliss was present, but
I think it's Superman's living room.
A man by the name of Robert
Condon.
Condon, thank you. I keep wanting to say Congdon, but that's not right. Condon. And he was a writer who was writing a story about a famous boxer who happened to be loosely connected to Reeves, and then he was staying with Reeves at the time. And Carol von Ronkel.
It's a great name.
She lived a few blocks away with her husband, screenwriter Rip Van Ronkel.
Which is an even better name.
I love it.
Like, what jerk at the
Rip
studio
Van Ronkel.
was like, okay, yeah, no, we have your professional name for you. Are you ready? It's Rip Van Ronkel. You ready? Yeah.
Yeah, he might have been born like, Fred or something like that, and he just picked up the nickname Rip Van Ronkel. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is a weird thing.
Carol Van Ronkel apparently was also having an affair with Condon.
The writer.
According to this group, previously colorfully named group of people, Lemon and Reeves had gone to dinner with Condon, and all of the accounts that I have read are very sure to mention that they were also drinking.
A lot.
It sounds like this
Excessively.
group of people they did drink a lot, but it's always they went out to dinner and drank. Reeves and Lemon had an argument at the restaurant in front of Condon, and then the three returned home.
Maybe it was, wait, you've been telling people we're eloping?
Yeah. Maybe it was, wait. Probably Condon was like, are you excited to go to Spain? And he's like, what for? What do you mean we're going to Spain?
Great idea.
Later during an interview for Reeves's biography, however, Lemon actually said that she and Reeves had gone to a wrestling match that night. It sounds like Reeves's friend Jean LaBelle, who was a famous wrestler at the time, was wrestling that night in town, but LaBelle said that he saw Reeves at his workout session